Bomba data, 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 bomba data,
Yeah.
bomba
Let's
data.
go.
Let's go. Hey,
Happy
everybody.
trails. What's
Hey,
happening?
good
Kids?
morning, you guys. Good to see you.
Oh my gosh, we got a special guest today on Happy Trails.
Yes, we do. Very special guest on the podcast. And we've got Kim. Tell us, I always pronounce your last name Faucher.
Faucher.
Faucher. See, I knew I would have screwed it up. You
Yeah.
Faucher? So Kim.
It's the French pronunciation, and you barely screwed it up because I've had it said on an overhead speaker in the worst possible way. Like, who would have said paging Dr. Faucher, paging Dr. Like, who would have chose that particular pronunciation?
Oh,
Anyway.
I love it. I love it. Don't give me any ideas, Kim.
I know. So
it's
Faucher, which reminds with
Faucher.
the way.
So everybody,
like
we've got
Faucher.
Yes.
We've got Kim Faucher with us, and Kim has been an awesome person to get to know in the last couple of years. Kim is one of the main GPs in the San Antonio deal that Blaine and I have talked about, and that I have co-GP'd and learned a lot as we move through this process with Kim and the other GPs. Kim is also a physician. She is from California, so don't hold that against her, because
Please.
I lived there once too.
Yeah.
And there's room for you to come out this way, Kim.
I visit there. It's great to visit.
Yeah. It is great to visit. Don't stay more than 3 months, or they'll figure out how to tax you.
Yeah.
So that's why I got the hell out.
Yeah.
That's why I got out. Hey, so I learned something new about Kim just recently. And Kim is this your first book?
Yeah.
So
nice.
Kim is part of her first book, and the book is called The Transformational Journey: Lessons from Business, Life, and Happiness. And to be quite candid, as much as I've known Kim for the last couple of years, I can't think of another person that would be able to speak to those three things any better than Kim Faucher. So this is
high praise.
I'm excited to share some time with you on the podcast, and we're just going to kind of shoot from the hip. And I've screwed up. We've introduced you. I'm Matt Bynum. I am from Greenville, Simpsonville, South Carolina, practicing dentist for nearly 30 years. And my cohort over here,
Dr. Blaine McLaughlin from Robbins, Iowa. And if you count dental school, because we did practice in dental school, we're over 30 years.
Well, we're still practicing.
We started, yeah. So,
yeah, a long time ago. Kim, how long have you been practicing?
I started OBGYN about 30 years ago. So I was a doctor more than 30, so I'm right in there.
Yeah.
And it's about 15 years longer than I was thinking. Because honestly, I really did start thinking about something that you guys have spoken about before. Like, it would be nice to be doing this for the love of it, not because we have to. And at the point I started thinking that had to do with raising a family and not wanting to like run out in the middle of the night to deliver a baby, or not being on call for emergency room stuff. And just, we're all at risk. Medical people are all at risk for this particular kind of over caring burnout where you just don't recover. So one thing is to be able to dial it back, but it's hard to dial back how much you work because you need a certain income. And like you've talked about before, you don't make any money if you don't show up and work. That's the central problem that we're trying to solve with what this podcast and what investing is about. That's the thing that we wish we would have known probably a long time ago, and why we're here is to help other people like get it.
It's crazy. Blaine and I, we talk about this all the time, and it's so difficult because when you talk to your other professionals, they think you're crazy. Like, they literally 100%. Look at you like, what are you talking about? This is where you make your money. And
why would you take a day off? Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe because I need it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe, or I want it. How about that? But okay. So that's a great segue. Just going into the very first question, Kim. So you've been a practicing OB-GYN for over 30 years. When did you start your real estate journey, and how did it start?
I started when I was 23. When I started medical school, it was the 80s, or like, don't do the math. And I thought, I am not going to rent, I'm going to buy. I didn't have a dime, really, but I had got into the military academy version of medical school. And so I had a little tiny bit of an income. And so I decided to buy a house and rent a couple of rooms to help pay for it, which since I didn't have a dime, when it got time to like close, I had to ask for a little bit of money back then, $10,000. And I asked my folks, I got one yes and one no. So then I had to go to my grandparents. I got one yes and one no.
Wow. Wow.
And 2,000, that's what I was asking for. And then I asked my best, my best friend happened to know, my best friend's parents chipped in. And then, believe it or not, the realtor, he chipped in.
Wow.
The realtor was such a believer. So basically, what is that? I was house hacking, and I just did a syndication. So 1 year later, those four people who gave me $2,000, I gave them $3,000 back, because I was so grateful to them for trusting me. And that first house I owned during medical school was like, more or less paid for by the renters.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fixed it up a little bit, and I sold it when I left so if I had zero in, I sold it for, 100% return.
Infinite return.
Right.
Yeah.
If I put a little bit in, if I think about how much was put in, it was still like a 8x or something. It was pretty big.
Dang.
And
That's
my
awesome.
thought was I was going to do that repeatedly, because I was in the Air Force and I would go everywhere I would go. I'd buy something, either sell it or rent it. And so I did a little bit of that, accumulating things. And I was going to buy little strip malls. And I never really got around to it because I kind of got busy. Plus I went to Japan, and that's unfortunate, because strip malls would be great right now in the COVID world. Those little like places where they didn't get shut down, everybody needed those little strip malls. Anyway, that was not the best strategy in the end. It wasn't nothing, but it wasn't the best strategy, because it's hard to manage places that were all over the place, and the management companies really did not do a good job. So you all know how hard that is. And as we've all survived 2008, so I had a pretty good nest egg in 2008, and that's when I was going to transition to a little boutique practice where I just worked because I wanted to. And I didn't lose a whole bunch of money in stocks because I wasn't in it, but I did get in the crossfire of the lending thing, because I had all these loans. I had a bunch of property with loans that were in the various stages of needing to be refinanced. So I lost a lot then. I basically had a 100% reset. And I had just moved, because I was in the plan of doing my boutique practice. I moved to the country where I was going to work less than full time. So I just buckled down and worked and paid attention to my kid. I kept my priorities, which was be a good mom and be the best doctor and try to stay light about the shit show that was the Great Recession. And then when I got some breathing room, then I said, okay, I'm going to be on the other side of this cluster next time. And I had figured out what was killing me was taxes and cash flow. And so I started reading, listening to podcasts, and doing mentorship programs. And I started with taxes, actually. And then I figured out real estate. And then I figured out multifamily. And so then I identified, this is not a game you just do. You have to like crack your way in to the old boys network. So then I spent a lot of money to like force my way in the door. And then I did what a lot of us in medicine do: see one, do one, teach one. It's like, get in there and take action right away. So I joined Sunrock, as did you guys, and got in as an LP, then did a co-GP, and then did the deal that we're all in together. And that you could do that and just be cruising along, or you could do that and be really working hard to like learn every single thing you can learn about it and master it. And do like a pre-mortem and a post-mortem and an M&M of every step of the way. So that's where we're at. That's how I got into it. That's how I made decisions along the way.
Look at Kim dropping nuggets. What was that party of three thing? Do one, teach one. What would you say?
Okay, it's C1, do one.
Do one,
And it used
teach
to be F1 up, but it's C1, do one, teach one.
That's just
Maybe that's a military thing. C1, do one, F1 up.
I love it though. That's a great nugget for everybody listening for sure.
So the LP, so going to a conference is sort of seeing it and like having your mind blown. Like, why did nobody tell us about that?
Oh yeah.
Do one is kind of LP.
Yeah.
And co-GP, and you're getting closer, and there's like stuff you can't do until you get a little bit of credential, or you get next door to somebody who's got the credential and they want to bring you in because you have either they remind you of where you were a minute ago and you just like have compassion for that, or they actually you can identify because you're like 5 minutes ahead of them that they actually can bring something, and you're developing your team.
Yeah.
Sometimes the groups you want to get into, they're like 10 years ahead. They don't remember. But the people who are 2 steps ahead, they really know like what thing you just had to surmount to. And that is the thing you need to know where you're at. You need to know that thing to build whatever it is you're trying to build.
You're so right. I mean, that's one of the things about the Sumrock Network that we started with is meeting the people that are on the early stages who, like you said, you had to break some doors down to get into or close proximity. And then as you start to learn the players that are really playing in the game, then you can edge yourself towards these people. So I feel like Blaine has done that really well. Blaine always says he's not a people person, a networker. He's so full of crap, but he's schmoozing with the best of them. And, but we've met some great people along the way, and it's brought us to at least get close to having a seat at the table, which is cool. Right, Blaine?
Oh yeah. And we talked a lot at the AIM NatCon.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that Matt and I both took away was proximity to people, and who are you around and who are you hanging with, and how can you bring value to them. And so that's cool. And that's why, we wanted Kim on the podcast, so we get proximity to another rock star.
Yeah. Well, Kim is a rock star. We already know that. So,
well, yeah, you know her better than I do. I'm learning lots right now of her story. This is great.
Yeah.
So the thing when you go to those groups is what I had to do, because I'm an extroverted introvert, meaning I get tired by that stuff. But what I've done, and maybe it's helpful to other people, because I bet there's a lot more introverts in medicine and dentistry than extroverts. Even though 80% of people are extroverts, I bet it's disproportionate in health. Anyway, I go in completely with this idea of how can I help that person? Like that's our natural posture, is how can I help? And it's like a disservice not to share whatever like you're here to the higher powers or whatever gave you some skill set or some knowledge or whatever it is, and you're here to share it. And that sort of maybe helps. And I also don't go in trying to meet 1,000 people. I go in saying, who are the 5 people I want to talk to? My first event where I met sort of one of the linchpin people on our team, which is Craig, was I need somebody who's been a couple of years ahead of me, who can raise capital, who lives in the market I'm after, and who's part of their being a couple of years ahead has signed on a loan. So this is like a huge nugget. Like when you're trying to figure out where you fit, you want to know where you're going, but then it's like, what pieces are you missing? And so I very deliberately had that in mind, and I wasn't networking. I was sitting there getting a breath, and the person walked up to me and said, "Can I buy you a glass of wine?" And then I started talking to him, and he's, this lovely man who's like, "Really? You live in San Antonio? Really? You've been doing this 3 years? Really? You've been a co-GP?" They just, like. Anyway.
Sounds like Craig. Sounds like Craig.
Yeah.
Can I buy you a glass of wine? That
Can I
part,
buy you a
yeah.
glass of wine?
Yeah. Anyway,
Blaine, you had experience meeting Craig for the first time, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. He was great. Well, we obviously I met Craig kind of through Matt and got to know him. And then I was going down to, I think, the Christmas party at Sumrock last year, and Matt wasn't there. And so Craig was like my dad. I mean, he's like, hey, let's come have lunch and breakfast, and what are you doing? And you got plans, and let's go. Hey, I'm going to introduce you to these people because they're blah, 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 blah. And it was just like, oh my God. I mean, he was like the greatest dude.
Right. That's the thing. He's just like, how can I help you? Right. That makes it so less tiring. And you don't feel like you're selling, like nobody really wants to sell, but we're all selling in a way, selling our idea, selling our ability, whatever.
I have a feeling you write about this in your book, in your portion of the book, it sounds like.
I write about what we talked about earlier, basically. And it's more like some things that we are trying to overcome in life. So the transformation. So it's a little bit more personal. It's really intimate. It was hard actually to write it and then take out enough that could be a nice short thing.
Did you get your backstory in there? The backstory that I know that, is it in the chapter?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I put my order in. I don't have it yet.
Oh, okay. I really tried to make it me not saying here's what happened, but just tell the thing so then people can see for themselves.
Yeah.
Okay. It's fun. It's fun exercise.
So where did you learn real estate from? I know you started early at 23, but who grabbed a hold of you, Kim, and said, hey, you should look at this other avenue here? Somebody had to have inspired you or taught you or something. Who was it that was instrumental in that?
My grandma and grandpa were
really?
Real estate. They ran a real estate office in San Diego. And, this was like a long time ago when San Diego wasn't really a city. And my grandpa was, I think they both were on the city development. So it's like nobody glamorized it. It wasn't this niche. It was like just what they did. Mm-hmm. That's why when I was 23, I'm like, well, I'm going to buy a house because I was just raised in that. It's like you buy a house, you don't rent. And also I had moved around 10 times. So I had a little thing about having roots, maybe. Not that that's like what everybody needs to do, but that was my thing. And so the big shift was later after 2008 when I was trying to recapture this pile of capital that I had basically lost through no fault of my own. I didn't feel like but it was my responsibility to get it back. And how are you going to do it? You're not going to work. Like it took me 10 or 15 years to acquire it. And I didn't really want to take that much time to reacquire it. And you're not going to reacquire it in the stock market. You guys had talked about the stock market and why your portfolios go down. There's a math thing to that. If you have 100,000 and it goes up 30%, you have 130,000 minus the 2% fees, which are really probably 5. But just for simplicity. So now it's 130, but then you lose 30,000 the next year, and maybe a couple of years later, a little bit more, you're losing 30% of a bigger number. But then if it went up again, you're raising 30% of a smaller number. And so I had read this thing by a CPA, and I wish I could find it again. But he said, the truth is, unless you're in those there's like in a 20, 30-year window, there's like 5 years that make the difference. If you happen to miss those, you're not going to get that 7%. So I put $10,000 in an IRA the first year out of training where I actually could. And then after that, I had made too much money, so I never could again. So I could only do that one Roth. And that Roth, 25 years later, 10,000 was worth 12,000 by the time I cashed it out. But most people don't know. I know that's so terrible. There's family member who say, well, you just got into a bad one. It's like, it was Ameriprise or Ameritas, and at least 3 different financial advisors, quote unquote, looked at it. Nobody said, whoa, you're getting screwed. Mm-hmm. They just let it ride. And what the thing is, I wasn't ever putting more money in it. So what we get shaded by is we kept putting money in it. So yeah, it's growing because you're putting money in it. It's not growing really. There's a lot of drag with the fees, and there's a lot of drag when you have a bad market. So anyway, I didn't maybe answer the question, when did I get into real estate? But it was like out of a sense of pain that I was not going to be able to live my values, which was, a more balanced life and experiencing my kids' childhood, et cetera, and trying to maintain some sense of health if I just worked my way back. So I needed to invest and take the capital that I could and try to double it faster. If I was way back when and just started in real estate, I wouldn't have been in the situation, I don't think. And that's really the lesson. Like, people don't have to become GPs. They just have to get their momentum going a little bit sooner. Mm-hmm. And they have to do it in something where you're mitigating your risk, something that's slow moving, a little more guaranteed, that's not completely behind closed doors. Something you can actually get at when you want. That's the other problem with 401ks is you don't own them. When you look at it, it says held for the benefit of Matt Bynum. It's not yours. You have to have a whole new education and strategy when you want to get it out, many years later. So it's this thing where somebody invented it, and then much later they said, oh, wait, that wasn't that great of an idea. But now there's a whole business around fund managers and hedge funds. And, basically the house wins. We are just part of their revenue source.
True. The house always wins, and what you're talking about is really the speed of money. That's what Blaine and I call the speed of money. We're in the process now, and Blaine explains it so well. Why did we start Happy Trails, Blaine?
Well, we're tired of trading time for money, right?
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's the thing. And we feel like we're running out of time, not necessarily running out of time to do the things we want to do. We want to travel, spend time with our kids while they're still young or whatever, and just go see the world. And we got I had a high school friend of mine die of a heart attack 2 years ago. And I'm like, oh my God, that guy's my age. Seriously, what's going on? And so it really made me step back and go, what do I want to do? I mean, I enjoy dentistry, but I don't want to have to do this. Like you said, Kim, I want to do it because I want to help people, help the office. I don't want to do it because oh my God, I got all these bills to do, I pay. And if I'm not here, I'm screwed. And then, you get into even disability or whatever, our hands are so valuable to us. If something happens to him, I broke my finger a while ago. It made things challenging.
Or you get a tremor.
I don't have that yet.
Well, that depends. Sometimes you can cut better when you do that. If you go back and forth, it just cuts it's more efficient.
We're just done trading time for money. We've got to have our money work for us instead of us working for our money.
And plus, we've been doing this for 30 years, like you, Kim. So it's just our happy trails is because we're two dentists. We're riding off into the sunset of our careers because we can't do it our whole lives. We don't want to do it our whole lives. And we need to figure out another alternative. And had we figured it out sooner, we'd be in a better position. But that's why the speed of money that you're talking about is so critical, because of time. That's the entire process that you're describing, that we have emphasized for so many episodes. Is time is all that we have, for sure.
Time is the most valuable, and really it's focus. So you want to focus your time on what you value the most. And you guys are both basically referring to this thing that was popularized in a book called Die with Zero. So there's this time where you're trying to raise money, and you get more and more money as you go. And then there's your health that's going down. And so there's this diagram where you have plenty of money and plenty of health. And the thing is, it doesn't make sense to keep striving to just keep making money, because that's a waste to have all that money, but not be able to use, not have your health. But because we need to have income that's coming in that's not based on our going to work, we need to invest in things that throw off money. And the stocks and those mutual funds do not throw off money. You pull it out and it's gone, right? So there's a few things that you can increase the pile faster and then get the pile deployed into things that throw off money. And then at some point you replace your basic expenses, and then you're kind of one level of free. And the sooner you get that number, the better you feel. And it's not that hard. Like there's a math equation that depending on how much you want to make every year, you could get that amount of money into investments for 5 straight years. If things are doubling every 5 years, then within 5 years, you've reproduced what your target is. So if it's 100,000, you put 100,000 in every year for 5 years, then you've got the flywheel and you're done. If you wanted to live on 200 or 300, either you do it more years or you do more like each year. And it's just like not that big. But if you just wanted a pile in stocks or whatever, the pile that we would need to reproduce our cash flow is like 6 to 10 million. It's like not that realistic, just working, Yeah. But the flywheel is more like 1 million. It's like not that, like 1 million would be living on 200,000 a year. Like that's sort of reasonable. And it will grow as the economy grows because the assets are growing. It's just better math, but they don't really want you to think of it because they want you to put your money in this 401ks in the stock market because they tell you you're you're not smart enough to do it. You're too busy to do it. You're too busy to know what's going on, et cetera, et cetera. It's like,
that's where other people are making money. I mean, those
for
are the
them,
big
right?
family.
Hedge fund people are making the money.
Hell yeah, they are. It's crazy, but you don't think of it that way. But so we had a bunch of questions that we put out. Blaine, you had some questions you wanted to ask him specifically. So fire away, because I've asked a couple.
Well, some of them were how'd you get into it? You talked about that. I was just wondering, my question was for us guys, I'm not a GP yet, and Matt's a co-GP. We're looking to step that up and get into a GP deal. And so what advice do you have for us guys? What is important that you think for us guys who are a few steps behind you to ramp it up?
So first you have to double check why exactly do you want to go that route, because you can achieve what you want not probably doing that. Maybe I would have to know exactly what you want, but say we've clarified why exactly do you think that's the route to go. And for me, it was like I needed to grow that pile faster, so I needed to put more time, effort, and risk. So going the fully GP route is time, effort, and risk. It's not passive, really, at all.
Yeah.
And
well, passive. We talk about passive income, and again, it'll 2x your money, and then you get to Cardone. He's like 10x, baby, 10x. And so we're like the GP route. Well, you can make a lot more, right, than just an LP.
Yes.
I mean, I'm in multiple LP deals, and I think they're great. But in order to speed up that money, the speed of money that we send, I was thinking the GP route would be better to go.
Yes, the GP route is like, for me, to have a small pile, trying to get a bigger pile faster because I'm kind of too far along to just work and invest to get that flywheel, at least in my mind. And so there's a subset of people who want to do it, and then you have to be wanting to work because it's a lot more work. This sort of idea that real estate is passive is not exactly true.
Yeah.
Focus. So focus on the individual components that you need to understand. And I know everybody says have relationships. It's hard to develop all the relationships when you're starting from scratch. So really the best thing is to, again, find somebody who's 1 or 2 steps ahead of you and really, really get to know them. It's a little bit of it's tricky. You don't get to know people until you're taking action with them sometimes. It's sort of like driving your car. The GPS doesn't help you unless you're moving. And so you have to be willing to take risk. You have to be willing to adjust a lot, adapt to the situation, and then So that's maybe sort of a philosophical thing, but to me, the answer is find someone who's in one part of it that can pull you in, and or become an expert at one part of it, and then then you bring somebody in who's wanting to do what you're doing. So Matt's in maybe a market that's really interesting to other people, and so you could get super experienced and you could find a good deal, and then you could go to somebody who's already got a business going and say, and present that as, here's an opportunity. It's like, so I was wanting to get into South Carolina, right? Is it South or North? South. Okay. Say I was wanting to get in that market. You knew I was like, I had relationships with property management and relationships with lenders. Those are your two big things. But you had broker relationships because of where you live. And then you found a deal. And then we talk about the deal and we agree that the numbers are good. Now, all of a sudden we are enhancing each other. And you're enhancing my goal to expand. I'm enhancing your goal to get at the table. And it's like, you can't just, so how I got in at the GP table was, I live in California. I'm a doctor. I can raise $1 million. Like that's a classic one. It's like, if you can raise money, you almost have the most opportunities. So I hope that answers the question. There's like some components, basic components, huge. Right? And it's like, do you have one of the big components? And if so, you just need to find somebody who's missing that part, and most importantly, make sure that you guys are like aligned, like value alignment and sort of personality alignment. Because that stuff, even though I might have a good business plan and you have a good opportunity, if we're not kind of synced up emotionally, it's going to be a big drag. It's going to be the stupid tax. This was a stupid idea.
Who's got your money?
You do. Who's got your money?
Yeah.
Who's got your?
Well,
okay.
The other thing that I think is so important, and I was going to ask you this, is finding some sort of mentor. We got involved in the Sumrock system and our personal mentoring students. And I think that just would take years off the whole process, just because of getting in. And tell me what your take is on that.
So I think that, we keep naming that name, but there's lots of programs.
Yeah,
they have their one thing that they might be good at. So he's an amazing marketer and charismatic. And I do like how he teaches people to think about the math and the acquisition. I don't necessarily think as mentorship necessarily to do the next step that's the ideal situation. I think you have to get into the playing field, but once you're in the playing field, you need to find like one person. Like if you want to be a really good running back, you're going to go find another running back and work with them. Maybe, you don't just like talk to all the people in the stands and all the referees and, all the different components. So I think it's like at the level you guys are at, you are next level already. You need to be more personal. Who's your personal person? Like it's okay. Here's a better analogy. Medicine. It's like, there is so much information online. A lot of it is dubious, but there's a lot there. And after you like research it, you kind of know, okay, here's the things I should think about. Here's the different ways I could say, well, I wanted to lose weight. Here's things about nutrition and things about exercise and things about supplements or whatever. Some of it's bogus and you can't trust it, but eventually you're going to get one person. You're going to go to a doctor or you're going to go to somebody who's done it before. One person who's working with you as a person to really move the dial. That's what I think.
Cool.
So I like it. I got one last question for you. So we talk about this all the time, but whether you're going to invest passively or other, there are things that you're going to look for within the community or the deal or whatever it is, what are the top three things you look for in a multifamily real estate deal that you think are the critical components for, let's just say you're a passive investor. So what are the three things you're looking for as somebody that wants to invest money with somebody into a deal? What are your top three things?
Everybody says these same things, but it's because they're true. One is the partners that you're investing with. So the people and what a lot of people say is they've had to do 5 deals and they have to go in full circle. It's like, well, that's a substitute for proving themselves. And it's
Right.
like, if you have another way that somebody has proven themselves, and how do they prove themselves? That they're not a criminal, and then they're not a total F up, like they have some ability to execute, and they have the integrity to like look out for your money. You worked really hard for your money, and really what you want somebody to do is care as much about or more about your money than about their own, in a way.
Ooh.
Which is very much like being a doctor. It's like, I don't keep patients who don't care as much about their health as I do, because I'm like putting a lot into them. So I just bring that basically. People always say, well, they should invest a lot of their own money. That's how they prove it. No, it's like, if you think that's what it takes for them to prove it, then you don't know that person enough.
Right.
So yeah, you can use track record as a substitute for actually knowing the people, and that's fine. People do that. And so one is the team, and like really wondering how you're figuring it out. And it might want to be a little bit more than you just like them, because there's plenty of charming people who do not have your best interest at heart.
Yep.
And the other thing is understanding why the geographic location has something to offer. And I'm not going to say, here's the cities that are great. It's like, because there's good money to be made in all kinds of cities, but whoever you're working with should be able to explain it. It's like, well, so I've met some people that live in the Puget Sound, and that's not necessarily on anybody's list. It's really expensive and very volatile market. But if you know that market and you've been there a while doing it, you can say exactly like what's special about it. And maybe you could refer to some economic things that are playing into the market. So I don't want somebody to just say Phoenix or Orlando. It's like, people are in Kansas City, or they're in Duluth, or they're in like the Puget Sound. And it's like and even in California, I go to conferences where there's people investing in California, because I think half the investors are from California, and they know their niche. They know how to do it because they are immersed in it. So I like to have people like articulate basically their thought process. So there's so there's 2 of the 3,
There's
the
2.
people and the market, which is basically refers back to the people. And the third one is when I think what makes a big difference in a deal is the loan. I think it's really, really been underappreciated. 2 big things have the deal work out: the loan and the property management company. Property management companies are very hard. I think we have a pretty good one, and it's still pretty hard to get the level of attention that I would like. But then the lender and the loan, like what loan you can get in any given time and date, like you want to know that whoever you're working with understands that part. And if you ask them a question about it, they convey that they get how important that is. Like they actually look at you thinking, wow, that's interesting. You should ask about the loan. Because that is your biggest counterparty risk as a lender. And if you're not considering the terms, or don't think to worry about that, you're kind of missing a big part of the
that's
valuable
totally blown me
risk.
away, is the loans and how they can be structured, and just the variety of things from top to bottom and all over the place. It's like crazy. It's one of those things that I got into, and I'm like, wow, this is incredible. And there's so many things you can put in there to help the deal go well, and so many things that could screw it up. So
yeah.
that's cool.
So really it all gets down to your people. that are doing it, are they good people with some capability? Then are they people who understand the market thereafter? And then are they people who understand like the main components of what's going to make the deal work or not? And are they, which all of that means, are they actually really immersed in it? Or are they just somebody with a bunch of money who's joining deals and has their name on it? But
Because there's a lot of those. I mean,
there
there's
is
an
a
awful
lot
lot
of
of. I think the first thing you said, Kim, in regards to the team, obviously was your first response as the partners, was the mention of integrity. It's something that, Blaine, we've never really mentioned on the podcast before. So Kim's like doing a 1A, 1B, so you can see why Kim's so great at underwriting, because there's so many little things. But really the integrity of the people that you're doing business with, and that is super critical. It's not just an evaluation of have they been successful, it's where's their intention, and are they really going to look out for me as an investor and the other investors? What's the intent behind it? Is it money? Is it building the community? Is it both? I mean, those are really key points, Kim. Thanks for pointing those out, because I it's something that all people should take into consideration when you're looking at any kind of a deal. It's not just what's the reputation of the person, it's the reputation, but what reputation precedes that reputation. I've been around, our only exposure is through Sumrock. So some of the players in Sumrock that Blaine and I have met, we gravitate to a certain few, even though there is tons of people that are pushing deals whenever we're at an event. There's only a few people that I keep my eye on, because I really love the integrity of the person that we're talking to. And, I probably have a handful that I've watched in the last 2 years that I'm like, those are people that I would be interested in doing deals with, just because of the person that they are.
And just the fact that you said pushing deals, like, to me, if it feels like we're pushing deals, there's a little bit of a misalignment, because it should feel like, here's something really a great opportunity. Would you like to hear about it? And then I'm asking, what is your goal? And I'm going to like filter out, like, no, this isn't right for you. If you're somebody who's 70 years old and you just need cash flow, no, this isn't right. This is not the right thing for you. And
Right.
it's sort of back to the beginning of our conversation, where it's like, we don't really want to sell. We're just like, we have opportunities, and we're trying to get people in on opportunities that are appropriate for them.
Cool.
So,
let's one last thing. Let's do one nugget, one Kim Faucher nugget takeaway. One takeaway for the listeners and the viewers. What does Kim have to offer? That one thing that when people leave this podcast, they go, holy shit, that was incredible. Give us something.
Okay. This is my nugget. It seems like a sideways thing, but when you're talking to somebody, or when you're done with an interview, or when you're done going to a doctor visit or whatever, the best indicator that you have like aligned and you're going to have a good success working with them in whatever capacity is you leave that encounter thinking, I'm glad I came. Like, so you have this internal gauge of, this is going to be good for me some way or another.
That's awesome. I feel good about this conversation. I don't know about you, Blaine.
Yep.
Blaine and I always feel aligned because we're knuckleheads, but you just fell in. Group hug, everybody. Group hug.
You know what? I actually think Grant is a sweetheart. This symbol in Japan, this 10x, I get he does this 10x, but in Japan, that means not appropriate.
Yeah.
Don't come here. So I lived in Japan, and this would happen at the door, and it would be, okay, we have to leave now. We can't come here. So I'm like, I wonder what symbol we could have. I'm like, the bear hug symbol. Since we started our conversation with symbols.
Yeah, I like it. Well, nice. that concludes our slight and small interview with the infamous Kim Faucher. And Kim, it's been a great honor to share some time with you, and thank you for your knowledge. And
thank you.
We're only touching the tips of what
we're just getting started on the iceberg. We have more to talk about.
So crazy. But for those of you watching and listen, share the podcast, tell your friends, bring them along, and of course, we're here to grow, and we're here to join this thing with you. So come be a part of this this movement that we call Happy Trail.
Happy trail.
Happy trails, everybody.
See ya.
Bye.